The stats are overwhelming, man. They really are. There's a recent survey done of Australasian cognitive knowledge workers, and there was several thousand people were surveyed, and 49% of those people surveyed said that in the last 12 months they were either burnt out or exhausted.
Before we get into the episode, I just want to say a big thanks to my mate Andrew here at Airwolf Forest Motor Company for supporting the episode and the podcast.
We specialise in high-performance British, American and European cars. As a listener and a supporter of David Mel's podcast, I'd invite any listeners to get in touch, have a look at our website, www.efmc.co.nz. Come and see what we've got out here and we'll take care of you.
Hello and welcome to the 10 Million in 10 Years podcast. I've got a guest with me today, Craig from Breaking Busy. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks, David. It's really exciting to be here, so thanks for the invitation. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're just saying you're doing the coast to coast next year.
Yes. Yeah, well, hopefully I'll get there. The training's going pretty well at the moment, and I'm certainly registered and paid up. So, everything going according to plan, I'll be running around February next year.
Which category are you doing? Which event?
Just a 2-day individual.
Yeah.
Nice. First time, so don't want to push it out too far.
Is it a lottery to get in, or is there?
You register and they'll take a certain amount, and then because they get full every year, and then anybody that's still left over just goes into a ballot, and that's when it becomes a lottery. So my brother, who's completed this year, he went in the ballot and he's in doing the longest day, and my brother-in-law is also doing it. So it's a bit of a family affair,
nice.
Which is cool.
Yeah. How good?
Yeah, good.
So give us a sort of background overview. Who are you? What do you do? It's quite a funny thing for me, the podcasting, when I have guests that I don't know, I've never met before.
It's
quite fun and exciting.
Yeah, well, I guess we were just talking about this just before, how many podcasts you do, and you've done a significant amount. So I guess it's pretty cool for you to meet so many people and such a varied type of people too. So it's probably a lot of fun from your perspective. But who am I? Well, if I go all the way back, I'm a qualified butcher. That's what I did out of school. That didn't last long. I got my qualification and then moved on. But went overseas, did the OE like so many Kiwis do, right? And came back and went to university, did a physical education degree, went teaching for a little while. Then I owned my own business, so my wife and I owned our own business for about 12 years. That all finished up early this year. And then, again, you and I were talking about it, there's a whole, right through that business period of 12 years, I look back on it now and I just think, shit, man, that was a hard 12 years, man. And especially after COVID, and we weren't alone. It was, it was pretty prevalent. All these businesses doing it real tough, and we were one of them. And those 12 years were real tough, man. And then we finished up that business, and since then I've been probably prioritising myself and my family, which is, to my shame, probably not something I did a great deal of through those 12 years, so I'm just enjoying choosing what I do. I'm obviously loving the physical activity that I'm doing at the moment with the training, but I'm there for my daughter. I've got a 9-year-old, I've got teenage kids too, and so that's kind of me. I'm real big on outdoors physical activity, but real big on my family. 5 kids, it's a huge part of my life. And as I said earlier, it's probably one that I neglected to a certain degree when I, through that period of business ownership.
Yeah. What industry were you in?
We're in childcare, the Oscar sector. So we had before and after school programs and school holiday programs. And we were doing really well pre-COVID. And then COVID hit, and so much changed, right? In terms of how people work and the stress that people were under, and now of course we're going through this huge financial crisis. Money's not easy to find for people, so it all didn't end well, which is never cool, and but I learned a lot out of it, that's for sure.
That's win or learn, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this to a few people since then. you see these posters and these quotes and these anecdotes, and you see them all over the place. And the one that I always, that's quite prevalent is that, you can learn a lot from your failures, and I don't think you ever really understand the value of that until it happens to you. And, as I said earlier, those 12 years, while they weren't all a failure, ultimately the business was a failure, but shit, I learned a great deal, man. I really, really did, and it really put that saying into perspective. And there's things that I learned out of that period that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So I'm a big believer in the phrase you just said. You're winning or you're learning, and you've got to be in the right headspace though to take on those things. You've got to have that right attitude to take on the things when you do lose or when you don't win, and turn them into positives.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think both those words, success and failure, have got such varied meanings and definitions depending on who you are and who you speak to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was listening to a podcast a while ago. I can't remember who it was now, but he's talking about failure. I was actually My First Million. I don't know if you've heard of those guys, but I listened to him a little bit, and he was, they were talking about the word failure, right? And failure has to happen. You have to fail. At some point in our lives, we will all fail. We'll all lose. It's just it's a part of who we are. It's a part of our life cycle. But it's how we react to that. I think that's where the learning can come from. So sometimes failure can have some real positive outcomes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Toby, the editor, he is a big fan of the First Million. I've never listened to it personally, but
pretty cool, pretty good podcast.
Yeah. What's the gist? Is it around them making their first million, or what?
I think that's where it originally came from. It's actually my wife that put me onto it, but
right.
It can be quite varied. They talk about new business they come up with. They might do a podcast on the 5 businesses they think are going to go gangbusters next year, or it's all business based,
right?
But it's in terms of what the content is, it's quite varied. Yeah.
Is HubSpot the main sponsor?
Yeah.
Got it.
The main sponsor of a lot of things, aren't they?
I don't know. Are they? I don't know.
Well, I see them around a lot. Maybe it's just my social feeds. It keeps coming up on my social feeds anyway.
I use the platform. I'm a fan.
Do you?
Yeah. I love HubSpot.
I've not touched it, to be fair.
Yeah, no,
maybe
it's a good platform.
Yeah.
They're rumored to be acquired by Google at some point.
No, it doesn't surprise me.
That's the potential exit for them.
Yeah, very good asset to have. I imagine the acquisition number won't be low.
No, they've really done the yards. They've built a platform that's
absolutely
hugely usable, and for their pricing model is always interesting to me. The free version is extremely functional, and I've had no need to upgrade.
Oh, wicked!
It's one of those ones that I would like to almost spend money because it's so good. They give a lot of value. So,
but that gets you talking, right?
Totally. Well, here we are, right?
Yeah. You're enjoying it. You tell other people, and
that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me about Breaking Busy. What's the model? What's the offering?
So it's it came out of my experiences in business, both my personal experiences, but also what I saw in our staff and in staff of companies that we kind of partnered with and we worked with. And how many times do we hear around the office that I'm flat out, I haven't got time for this, when am I going to find time to complete this? Or we go home from work and work's still on our mind, or we can't go to sleep because we're thinking about what I got to do tomorrow, and there's always that pressure on us to do more and do more and do more, and historically, that's kind of how we've always got ahead, right? Like that's the understanding. If I do more, my boss will see me doing more, and he or she will then think I'm successful. So I'll get a promotion, I'll get a pay rise, whatever. So as I said earlier, when in our business we saw this a lot and we heard this a lot, and our staff were burnt out, and as a result, they were really struggling personally, but also they weren't that productive through no necessary fault of their own. They just weren't getting shit done, right? So I had a lot of look into how I could maybe change that. What can I do as a leader to make a difference? And I did a lot of research, did a lot of reading around that. I spent probably a good 6 to 12 months just learning around, what is burnout and how can we reduce it, and how do we measure productivity? What is our measure of productivity these days for knowledge workers? And I really enjoyed that research. I really enjoyed finding out about that, and I think what I enjoyed most is not just finding the knowledge, but being able to share that knowledge and make a difference. So that's kind of where it all came from for me. And then when our business kind of all went and collapsed, I spent some time thinking about what I want to do and what I was really passionate about, and that was one of them. And the more I looked into it, the more I realised that burnout is just a huge issue, right? It's a huge issue. I mean, the stats are overwhelming, man. They really are. There's a recent survey done of Australasian cognitive knowledge workers, and there was several thousand people were surveyed, and 49% of those people surveyed said that in the last 12 months they were either burnt out or exhausted. 51% of them said that they would describe their mental well-being as average to very low. That's 1 in 2. I mean, the stats are phenomenal. And then again, it's like looking further into it, it's actually so avoidable. It really is so avoidable, but we don't know what we don't know. And I had the knowledge, and I've been an ex-teacher. I'm pretty good at public speaking and speaking to a crowd of people and whatnot. So I thought, well, how can I use the knowledge I have and the passion I have for turning this around to create a wee something for myself and for me to do. And so that's when Breaking Busy was born. Yeah. So essentially what we're trying to do is break that busyness.
Yeah.
Be more productive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird opening line, isn't it? Have you been busy?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it comes from or why it's such a common. I guess it's not so important why it gets said or why it gets asked, but it is a pet peeve of mine. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Well,
it suggests, like, if you look at the definition of busy is just lots of activity.
True.
But, you can be busy doing anything. You can be busy washing the dishes.
Digging a hole.
Absolutely. You shovel after shovel, But the big issue that we have as a cognitive knowledge work society is that we're still using this definition of productivity that was created 100 plus years ago. When Henry Ford was making his cars on a assembly line, you can't quantify how much a cognitive knowledge worker does, right? The definition of productivity is amount of something put in for the amount of something you get out.
Yeah.
How do you quantify the knowledge work and the cognitive work that somebody puts into a report or a piece of work? You can't do it. So how do we use that definition of productivity to measure how much someone's doing at their desk?
I guess if you broaden it to say measure creativity, how do you measure that? That's another output that's quite difficult to measure, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very qualitative, right? You can't quantify that. And then we get into this situation where we have organisations, and I know firsthand of a very large government organisation that says, and it's a cognitive work organisation. They sit at their desks and they're producing cognitive work. And they've got to do 9 tasks a day. Just, that's it, 9 tasks a day. They don't care how well those tasks are done as long as you get 9 done.
Right.
So where's the quality in that work? You say, it's 5, coming up to 5 o'clock, I finish at 5:30, I've got 8 tasks done. I'm just going to smash through that 9th task. It's going to be shit, man, but I've done my 9. Where's the value in that?
Totally.
So and there's so many ways that we can be better at what we do. As I said earlier, we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. One of the things that I've come to realise is, Like I'll ask you, when you started your first sort of office type job, I don't know if you can remember back. You're a lot younger than me, mate, so I'm sure you can remember. Do you remember your induction?
Yeah, I mean, if I think back to my first office-based job, I probably would have been early 20s, so probably, say 2002-ish, 3 maybe.
Geez, you are younger than me, mate.
It was, it was pretty loose back then.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't really a huge process that probably companies have now. But I guess the point is that it was a output-driven role, right? It was working with a financial advisor / mortgage broker at the time.
Yeah,
and so it very much was a role that relied on results, right? It wasn't just a clock in, clock out.
Yeah,
it was about deals written. So
yeah, for sure.
So there was some pretty hardcore metrics around that, but the onboarding was pretty loose.
Yeah.
But
there's got to be metrics too, right? Like here 100%. I am saying, you can't just do 9 tasks a day. There's got to be some kind of metrics, some kind of accountability for your work, right? There has to be. But it's how we're constructing our day, how we're going about achieving that work or achieving those levels of productivity. I guess my point was asking you about your induction was that, like most inductions, you get a new staff member on, you show them where the staff room is, you tell them what time their lunch is, you talk to them about the EPA and you show them how we use our systems, how we write our reports, what CRM we use. But there's never any kind of knowledge imparted around how you structure your day. How many times are you going to check your emails out? On average, we check our emails every 6 minutes. It's so time wasting.
Yeah.
There's no real information on how to work. It's how to do the work, not how to work, not how to structure your day, how to structure your week. Has anyone ever talked to you about understanding your personal flow? Like if we look at myself and my wife does all of her hard work in the afternoon because mornings aren't great for her. So all of her cognitive deep thinking works in the afternoon. I'm the opposite.
Right, yeah.
But no one ever talks about that. But it's so relevant.
Yeah.
Why should I be trying to, think deeply when I'm still half asleep?
Yeah.
So those are the things that never get talked about, right? And those are the things that are really relevant to making sure that we are being productive and not just busy.
Yeah, for sure. What's the platform that you're doing? Are you building out a ecosystem of content, or is it a one-to-one or one-to-many type model? Or
it's probably, to be fair, less about the social media and more about this interaction, right? I like people, I love people, I love working with people, and I like being able to help people. And I find that a little bit more difficult to do over social media, and I just talk to a screen all day. So essentially, there's a couple of different ways that I approach this. So I got some seminars. There's 3 seminars that we do at the moment. One is around, they're 45-minute seminars. One's around emailing, how to work your email system productively and accurately. One's around meetings. We all know, we talk about going to meetings, man, everyone's head dips, go, oh God, another meeting. Like with meetings, if you don't have an agenda, you got nothing to talk about. If you got nothing to talk about, you got no meeting. So don't have a meeting.
Totally.
And the other one is around procrastination. 82% of us procrastinate, believe it or not, daily. So it's about understanding, procrastinate is not laziness, but so we need to understand why we procrastinate. Because if we understand why, then we can come up with some strategies for not doing that. So those are the 3 kind of seminars that I do, 45 minutes, and generally it's to a group, but I can do them one-on-one if someone wants to have that one-on-one time.
Yeah.
The big one, though, is the mentoring program. And that's huge because what we have to do is we have to unlearn what we know now about how we work and learn a new process, a new set of behaviours, new habits for at work. And you can't do that just like that. You know, like if we think about learning anything, we learn a new language, we learn the guitar, it's got to be done over time because you've got to lay down those neural pathways, right? Like we've got to, repetitiveness lays down those pathways. So we do that over 6 weeks. We have 1 hour a week for 6 weeks, and it's pretty in depth. But the reason that we do 6 weeks, minimum of 6 weeks, is that it provides a level of accountability to that individual, because they're going to come back next week and say, oh, no, I didn't do it, or yes, I did do it. And it allows time for those new behaviours and new habits to really cement themselves neurally. So that 6 weeks program is the big one for me, and that's where the real change will happen.
Yeah.
But I can also do that. We also do that as a team development program. So with a group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's it aimed at? Is it aimed at business owners or any knowledge-based worker?
Or any knowledge-based worker, but the way it's delivered is quite different, because if you're not a decision maker within a company, then you can't necessarily make a lot of change, right? But there's still ways that you can work more productively, that you can structure your own day. Business owners are like the pinnacle, right? Because they get to make decisions and make change in their organisations. So we can have some really good conversations about new strategies that they can implement that's going to benefit not just themselves, but all of their staff. Our goal with Breaking Busy, the goal is to be able to go home at whatever time, and it doesn't matter what time you finish work, right? Like we work from home now, it's a bit blurred, but work is finished. I want people to be able to go to bed and go to sleep, not go to bed like we spoke about earlier and think about what I got to do tomorrow. Shit, I forgot to do this. I better prioritise that tomorrow, or wake up in the middle of the night going, shit, I forgot I had to do that. That's a recipe for disaster, for mental health disaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess when you own a business, it's very much all on you, right?
Oh, 100%.
Responsibility, the cash flow, the management.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. And I think where problems occur maybe is when people that are not maybe built genetically or whatever, or not mentally cut out for it. Right? I think that's where the issues sometimes can take place.
Yeah, but like I spoke to a mate a couple of weeks ago. He owns a coffee culture here, and he said he used to cycle a lot. He did a lot of mountain biking. I said, mate, when was the last time you went for a mountain bike? Oh, mate, I'm just too busy. I can't. That's not healthy, right? We can't let, and I can speak from experience in this. We cannot let our work become all consuming, and we too often do. We spoke about that before too. We too often do, particularly if we own the business, that it is all on our shoulders, but it doesn't need to be. And we need to look at strategies for spreading that load and for putting some real boundaries in place. And those strategies are there, but again, if we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, there's no end to what is possible, right? Like, there's no end. There's no end. So you've got to cap it somehow. You've got to control it somehow, right?
Yeah, and it's just about boundaries, and you cannot go on forever. I think even the universe doesn't go on forever, right? So they tell us. You can't. It's physically impossible. You'll burn yourself out. You'll kill yourself. And what damage do you do along the way to your family, to yourself, to your mental health? So we've got to at some point say, enough is enough. I need to make a change here. I need to do something different.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, again, born out of my own experience. I mean, I was diagnosed with depression throughout my period of business ownership, and I won't be the only business owner that's been down that road, right? But I don't want other people to have to go through that, because there are ways that we can make a change.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, right.
Pretty heavy, but
no, but it's real though. I mean, I think this is why it's important. It's good to have conversations like this. Like, I think that when you find yourself in a position where it's not working, it's just critical to either, I don't know. Like, it's just not good. It's not good for your health. It's not good for anyone. So that's the key, right? It's just, if someone is listening to this and things are pretty shit, like, just
Sing out, man.
Sing out.
Absolutely,
yeah. Exactly.
And again, you and I were talking about it before about business ownership and the fact that you feel the weight of everything is on your shoulders. You are the end of everything. You have to get everything right. And another thing about business ownership, particularly for small business or small to medium business, is that those business owners always feel isolated. You think you're the only person having that particular issue, whether it's with IRD or whether it's with a Google account or whatever. It doesn't matter. We all think that we're alone, and there's network groups out there and whatnot, but I think they're more about hey, this is me, come buy my product. But I think to understand that you're not alone is really important too. And this conversation is probably digressing a little bit towards mental health, which is fine, because that's what Breaking Busy is about, is trying to improve that. But I think if more business owners can understand that they're not alone and understand that there are people, whether it's me or somebody else, they can help them, then sometimes you just got to swallow your pride a little bit and sing out, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I've noticed with my coaching clients is that they're all sole directors, so they're not in partnerships.
Yeah.
They've got teams, most of them, but they don't generally have partners. So I guess that's the role sometimes of an external third party, is to be that sounding board, be that resource that they can count on.
And I talking to another guy yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing, and you can't rely on your family for feedback, right? Because your family don't want to upset you, your sisters, your siblings, your kids, your husband or wife. So they're more likely to agree with you than challenge you. So you've got to be able to have that third party, that impartial person who's you go to and say, hey, David, I've got this good idea. And you go, no, man, it's actually not a good idea. Yeah. And this is why.
Yeah.
And too often, like again, myself and my wife were in business together, and we'd bounce stuff with each other, and it'd always be great ideas.
Right.
Right. Even if they weren't great ideas, they were great ideas.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to have that impartial person, like a business coach, who is up front with you and honest, and can say, hey man, that's actually not going to work, and this is why.
Yeah. The partner thing with your wife, that's another story altogether as well, isn't it? The family dynamic mixed with business, and I've done that before as well. And I take my hat off to people that can effectively manage that. It's quite the art, right? Juggling an interpersonal relationship with a business relationship can work well, but
it can work well, and I think my wife and I are pretty lucky. It worked really well for us for 12 years, and we saw each other 24/7 pretty much. But I'm not too proud to say that my wife is probably my best friend. So not probably, she is. So we talk about everything. So it was. I mean, there's always friction, but there's friction whether you're in a personal relationship or a business relationship. Doesn't matter, right? There's always going to be friction with any relationship. But 9% of the time we were there to support each other. We had two very separate and clearly identifiable roles within the business too, and that helped. I knew not to go into her lane, and she knew not to go into my lane, and that certainly worked really well too. Yeah,
so it was a pretty clear yin and yang type relationship, offset of skills and capability.
Well, she dealt with numbers. I don't like numbers.
Nah, that's good. Yeah, I mean that's what I notice is that partnerships that do work well, they're generally two complementary skill sets teamed up together, not two people that are very similar.
Yeah, and I think right. If we were the same and we were trying to both do the sort of the people leadership and management side of things together, that would have been fraught with a lot more danger. But because we had those two very clearly different roles, it worked really well.
Yeah. So what happened? You wrapped it up, and it's no more.
No, we unfortunately went into voluntary liquidation in early March. Which was pretty sad. Not just sad for us. We had a huge amount of staff. We had parents that were relying on us for our services and that kind of thing. So it was a really traumatic time, not just for us personally, but also for all of those people, right?
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long run as well, right? Like, it's not just a quick startup that
No.
you pumped a bit into it and it didn't work. It's a huge chunk of life, right?
Yeah, it was 12 years, and a lot of time, a lot of money we put in, a lot of our own money we put in. But that's, it's a part of my life that, I said this straight afterwards, you hear that phrase, it's like a weight off your shoulders. And there was, like, when we wrapped it up officially, that week was a pretty challenging week. And then the following week was like I was walking on air. And not because I was happy, just because all of a sudden I didn't have that stress and, the worries, the constant worries. I wasn't waking up in the middle of the night worried about whether we're going to have staff for that day at that site or, it was like a physical removal of that weight off my shoulders. It really was. And it was, it was quite liberating.
Yeah. Do you think in hindsight, would you have shut it down earlier if you could do it again?
Well, I don't want to do it again. Possibly, but like we were working for a long time before the official shutdown date. We were working with we had a business coach, business advisor. We were working closely with our accountant, and there were a lot of other factors that were going on as well. But at that time, we thought we could continue to trade through. But it all just kind of it was a huge emotional weight on both of us, and I think not that we gave up fighting, but that fight got really tiring, really draining.
Totally.
So if we knew now what we knew then maybe we would have wrapped it up earlier. But at the time, we were following the advice of professionals that we brought on board, and it all panned out the way it did.
Yeah. So that was the last 12 years. What's on the agenda for the next 12 years, the future?
I've always really enjoyed working with people, as I said, and I love the opportunity to help people. I love being able to make a difference. I guess, that's teaching, right? And that was my first real passion, and then moving into working with kids in the Oscar sector, that's also trying to, that wanting to help attitude. So, I'd really like to see that I can make a difference, with people, with knowledge workers, with people that are struggling, because, as I said earlier, with the stats, they're definitely out there. So that's kind of my plan. I really like to be able to provide some support and help for all of those people. Change behaviours, change outcomes, change the way people do stuff so that they have a better balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm hoping to achieve anyway.
Yeah. And does that look like continuing on with the seminar model plus the 6-session package, or who knows?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, I really enjoy working one-on-one with people or having people in front of me. I'm not, probably a little bit old school, mate. I understand the value of social media, particularly in what I do. I post on LinkedIn, I post on, and I'll probably put this up on both LinkedIn and Instagram. But it's not my preferred medium. I think, again, one of the big things for me around this whole burnout and exhaustion is, like you could right now search on Google, how to break burnout, and it would give you literally 15 or 20 different ways. There's the 1-3-5 rule, there's the 1-2-3 rule, there's the 1 hour rule, there's the 10 steps to break it. But none of them are bespoke. None of them deal with you. None of them take into account your life, the way you think, the way you feel, your flow of energy. It's just an app saying if everybody does this, you'll stop burnout. Well, it's bullshit. And it's got to be about you, because I'm changing your behaviour. But I need to understand your behaviour to change it. And your behaviour is different to Clive's, So I don't think apps are the best way to deal with this kind of problem, because it's not bespoke. It's not about you, and also, as I said earlier, change has got to be made over time, right? So, if you are one of my clients, you come to see me 6 times over a 6-week period. What's making you visit their app 6 times over a 6-week period? Nothing. It's I'm too busy. Whereas you've got me scheduled in 6 times over 6 weeks. You're going to be accountable to me, because there's all of that. There's that peer accountability. I'm paying money to see Craig. I need to make sure I do it. Whatever that accountability is, it's there, where it's not for an app.
Yeah. Do you think that and this is going to sound a bit soulless, but do you think some of this is based down to choice? Do you think that people make a choice, rightly or wrongly?
Yeah, absolutely.
To put themselves into this state of
100%. But why?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. But I guess some of it's not cultural, but like specific to the workplace, right? So, say for example, the standard is like busy, hectic.
Yeah.
Of course, if you get planted into that environment,
you're gonna take it on, right?
Totally.
But who sets that standard?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe
surely it's the decision makers,
I guess the
right?
top, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and there's this. I was speaking to someone about this, about breaking busy and what we're trying to achieve, and they said, "Oh, it won't work for marketing." I said, "It will work for marketing, guarantee it." No, I know it won't work for marketing because if Coca-Cola wants something done tomorrow, I've got to drop everything to it for Coca-Cola. I get that, but I guarantee you come and spend 6 weeks with me, we'll put some strategies in place to make sure that you're prioritising the right things and that you've got time to bring Coca-Cola in when they demand whatever they demand.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right in that it is whether it's a choice or not, I'm not sure, but you get caught up in the environment that you're in, right? And if everybody is valuing that busyness, then you're going to want to be busy. But what's the point of that? What are you trying to achieve by just being busy? And again, it comes back to how we, what we've learned over time. And you go to work, you start work as a 20-year-old or whatever, and you kind of, there's this unwritten rule that you just do everything, and you do more and more and more, and the more and more and more you do, the more successful you'll look. And because you're doing loads of tasks, your boss will look at that and see that you're doing loads of shit, and they'll go, "You're awesome because you're doing loads of stuff." But what's the actual output like? What's the quality of output like? So maybe in those situations that you spoke about, maybe the boss needs to say, "Okay, guys, we're going to slow down, and we're going to actually just do 75% of what we've been doing recently, but we're actually going to do it far better, and our client's going to be far happier." So, but it all comes from the top, right?
Yeah, I guess KPIs come to mind, boundaries come to mind.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of things that come to mind.
Yeah.
But it is a fascinating topic, and I think if I think about like the larger community, I think even just that wording and that terminology that we tend to use, or certain people tend to use, right? It's like, "Oh, how you going? You been busy?" It's like,
yeah.
What the fuck? Like, why?
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. No, I don't know why. But that's the thing, that we don't know where it comes from, but it's there.
It is there.
And we all buy into that.
Somewhat. I don't. I push back.
Yeah, but I mean, we all buy into that. Have you been busy today?
I say, no, I've been productive.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
But I wish more people could be like you. But how do you know you've been productive?
Well, based on my goals and based on... Well, that's good. That's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to try and make up something, but that's a good question.
But productivity is so unique to any particular organization, or, and if you ask most people, how is your productivity measured at your workplace? They'll go, "I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
KPIs aren't measuring productivity necessarily, and I'm not saying all, because some KPIs will be done extremely well. But if your KPI is, like I said before, complete 9 tasks, that's not measuring productivity. That's measuring busyness. That's measuring a quantifiable number. I've done 9 tasks. They're all shit, but I've done 9, so I'm productive. So is the measure of productivity how many tasks you do, or is the measure of productivity how well you do those tasks?
Yeah, it's a deeper question, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's interesting. And you said before we were talking about it being a choice, and even for those people that fall into that category of I'm working in a high stress environment as a ad executive earning $200,000 a year, well, anxiety isn't going to care. Exhaustion doesn't care. Exhaustion is not going to say, hey, this guy's chosen to do this, or this girl's chosen to do this, and they're earning $200,000, so we're not going to touch them. Exhaustion still happens, and nobody wants that. So you can't just say, I work in a high-stress environment, so I just have to accept that I'm going to be exhausted, burnt out, and my mental well-being is going to be shit.
I wonder if even just that choice of words doesn't help the cause, right?
100%,
Labeling the environment for what it may or may not be. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be flat out.
No, that's right.
And if you look at those roles that are flat out, what are they achieving over a period of time? And how many hours are they putting in to achieve that? If working 14-hour days is, that's not fun. That's not great.
I guess at the risk of going off on a tangent, I was meeting with a prospective client recently, Ash, and we're talking about hourly rates versus output versus project pricing, right? And so even just that whole pricing methodology is a little bit backwards sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So if you're billing by the hour, but it's not really the hour that the client or the customer cares about.
No.
It's the outcome, right?
Yeah.
It's the output.
Well, it should be.
Yeah. And so you wonder if even that's something that historically has been the case but may change over time.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Like as you say, you bill by the hour, then you're automatically putting a quantity in there. I'm going to bill you by the hour, but you only had 10 hours.
It's kind of the wrong metric, right?
It is. Yeah. Because one way or the other, I'm putting boundaries on you, and you go, well, I've only got 10 hours, so I just have to get it done as well as I can. It's not going to be perhaps as best as I can, but it's all I've got to do. So, and I'm not, but you also can't go the other way and say, hey, David, do this project for me, mate. I'll just pay you and take as long as you need. You can't go that way either. There's got to be a happy medium, and there is a happy medium. We just have to discuss it more.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's, I find this stuff fascinating, and I find it, for me, I find it enlightening and life-changing. And that's, I don't want other people to go through the 12 years before they figure it out. I'd like to be able to help people figure that out before they get to that point. I think probably my biggest challenge is that people, particularly New Zealanders, they don't like to be seen as not coping. They don't like to be seen as not being able to manage. So to admit, and that's always the first step, right? Doesn't matter what it is, to admit that you need help is going to be the first step for anybody to go, hey, look, I just need a different way. I don't want to keep going home at the end of the day and still be thinking about work. I need to put some boundaries in there. So
yeah, I'd like to think there's a movement shifting, and maybe with some younger entrepreneurs, business owners, there's a positive change coming, I feel, where there's work ethic, but there's also boundaries, and there's also people that are installing parameters that don't rely on constant just fatigue. I don't know. There's a real delicate balance there, though, right?
Yeah, there is.
I believe that you do need to go through seasons of hard work and through unhealthy balance.
Yeah, but those seasons are fine. Yeah, and again, it's knowing yourself. Have you heard of Cal Newport?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's got a fantastic book, actually, and he talks about those seasons. If we go way back thousands of years ago, we didn't work from 9 till 5, right? We worked. If we worked in the fields, we worked when the crops were ready, or we worked when we needed to plant those crops, or we worked in a rhythm like that. Not we just didn't get up at 8 o'clock and go and harvest the crop and go back at 5 o'clock. We harvested the crop when it was there.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we'd have our downtime in between.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong with having seasons of work, and there will be times where we go through maybe even days or weeks where we're just flat out and we're doing 12, 14 hours a day. But then we've got to find that balance, right? And we've got to go, okay, I've completed this project, I've done this season because I needed to right there and then. But now I'm going to start into a new season and I need to just do a little bit less for this period of time.
Yes.
And then if you look at that over 6 months, well, you've been bloody productive and you might have averaged 8-hour days, but a part of that was 14-hour days, a part of it was maybe 4 or 6-hour days. So the seasons are fine, but it's not doing it all the time, you know?
It's a good point when you think about a average employee, right? Who's contracted to work 40 hours a week, regardless of intensity, or regardless of, I guess intensity would be the word, right? Like, so if you've got 1 week that's incredibly stressful, 10 on the stress scale, but then you've got a week that's a 2 on the stress scale, same hours, same pay. It's interesting, isn't it?
I don't know if we see that a lot though. You know, often we're driven, as I said, too often by busyness. So if we see our staff member, on that 2 hour a day cycle, we go, well, I'll give them more work. You know, we don't think about what they did last week. We look at them today and we go, oh, shit, Billy's he's been on Facebook for an hour. He can have another task. He can have another project. We don't consider that. There's a thing called, which I call pull push. You know, and all too often we have new tasks and projects pushed on us, right? And they're just pushed and pushed and pushed. Do this, David. Do this, David. Do this, David. And we don't have the ability, because one of the big things too is people don't know how to say no.
Yeah, I mean, boundaries, right?
Boundaries, you know, and I talk about you don't have to say no, but you have to learn not to say yes all the time, because there's a difference. So the whole push-pull strategy is trying to turn that round so that you pull new tasks onto you when you're ready to do them, rather than have these tasks being pushed at you constantly. And we set up holding bays and active bays and all these sorts of things to facilitate that. And then your boss comes to you and says, hey, David, I need you to do this. And you go, okay, man, good as gold. This is my holding bay. These are the jobs I've got on right now. Can you let me know which one you don't want me to do? And I'll do this one for you.
Yeah, it's practical.
Yeah, and you're not saying no, but you're making that decision, your boss's decision. You can't do everything.
That's right, yeah.
So he or she will make the decision what you don't do.
Yeah.
And it gets you off the hook. But that's what I mean. There's strategies for everything.
Yeah, I mean, the word communication comes to mind during that recent example. You know, having the ability to communicate effectively and to explain where you're at, right?
Yeah. But if you're a young person coming in, there's that power imbalance too.
Totally, yeah. I mean,
and I know I don't want to say no to my boss. I've just started.
Yeah.
I want a pay rise. I want to work hard to get a pay rise or a promotion.
Totally.
So sometimes it's not, the communication's not the key, it's the power imbalance that's the important part there.
Yeah.
And again, we can mitigate that by having these holding bays and active bays in place. And I can say, like, these are the ones I'm working on. These are the ones in the holding bay that I'm waiting to get started on. You can tell me which one you want me to put back or stop or, So there's lots of strategies like that we can implement, and they don't take a lot of work to implement, but they'll certainly save a great deal.
Yeah,
down the track.
Yeah, I mean, I think most business owners, in my experience, want the best for their people. They want to create
100%.
an environment.
Yeah,
so it's not, I think, intentionally people wanting to squeeze every last cent of value out of someone.
And I should apologise if that's the perception that came across from what I was saying. I 100% agree with you. I'd say 95% of business owners want the best for their people.
Totally.
But they still only know what they know, and it's just been for so long that we've said, oh, Billy's sitting there a little bit idle, so I'll just give him another job. It's not because I don't like Billy, it's just because he's got to be busy, right? Because aren't we all supposed to just be busy? So it's just not knowing what they don't know. And that's why I mentioned earlier, there's two different approaches depending on whether it's a decision maker in an organisation or whether it's just whether it's an employee that's kind of has no ability to make change.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, two very different
Yeah.
situations, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good. How does someone come and find you if they are keen to learn more?
Well, Craig at breakingbusy.co.nz or just breakingbusy.co.nz website. And there's, get in touch, and there's information on all the different offerings that I have there, particularly around the mentoring side of things.
Yeah.
And there'll be, I'll put on the seminars, and they'll all be all over Facebook and social media and all the rest of it too.
Yeah.
So
all in person, or do you do remote, or both? Or
I can do remote. Again, I would rather do it in person because I think it's a topic that can be quite, like we're talking about mental health, right, and mental well-being. So it can be a little bit emotional. And I talk a little bit about myself and my own background and my own challenges. So I feel that's best done in person. You can relate to somebody rather than just being on the end of a screen. But I'm not opposed to doing them remotely. Certainly the one-on-one, because there's only so many people in Christchurch, right? So certainly the mentoring can be done one-on-one, because at least there's one person on either end of that screen rather than doing a session to a dozen people or whatever.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time.
No worries. I really appreciate the invite, man. It was great to meet you, and it was a privilege to be on your podcast.
Likewise.
Cheers.
Well, thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks, man.